The United States of America, a nation that rose from 13 struggling colonies to become one of the most powerful countries in the world. But how did this transformation happen? This is the story of ambition, revolution, struggle, and dreams. The story of America. Chapter 1. The beginning, 1600s to 1700s. Footage of ships arriving, settlers landing on the shores. In the early 1600s, European explorers sailed across the Atlantic in search of a new world. The British established their first permanent colony in Jamestown, Virginia, in 1607. Life was brutal: hunger, disease, and conflict with Native Americans defined their existence. But slowly, the colonies began to grow. 13 of them stretching along the Atlantic coast. Farmers, merchants, blacksmiths, and dreamers built towns. They worked hard, traded, and developed their own identity, different from their British rulers. By the mid-1700s, something was changing. A sense of "we are not them" was growing. Taxes were high. The British king, George III, ruled from across the ocean. Yet the colonists had no voice in government. They called it taxation without representation. And soon, rebellion began to brew. Chapter 2. The Spark of Revolution, minus 1765 to 1776. In 1765, the Stamp Act ignited anger. Then came the Boston Massacre in 1770, and finally, the famous Boston Tea Party in 1773. When colonists dumped British tea into the harbor to protest unfair taxes, the British were furious. Tensions exploded. By 1775, gunfire rang out at Lexington and Concord, the first shots of the American Revolutionary War. And 1 year later, on July 4th, 1776, the world changed forever. 56 men signed a Declaration of Independence, written by Thomas Jefferson, declaring that all men are created equal, and that the colonies were now free and independent states. The United States of America was born. Chapter 3. War and Freedom, minus 1776 to 1783. But declaring freedom was one thing. Earning it was another. The Revolutionary War raged for 8 long years. The colonists fought against the most powerful empire in the world. Leading them was General George Washington, a man whose courage and discipline held the army together even through brutal winters like Valley Forge. Then, in 1781, at Yorktown, British General Cornwallis surrendered. 2 years later, in 1783, the Treaty of Paris officially ended the war. America had won. A nation of dreamers had defeated an empire. Chapter 4. Building a Nation, minus 1787 to 1800s. Victory brought freedom, but not order. The young United States struggled to form a government. So in 1787, delegates gathered in Philadelphia and wrote a document that would shape the world, the U.S. Constitution. It created a system of checks and balances, a president, a Congress, and a Supreme Court, a framework still used today. In 1789, George Washington became the first president of the United States. But this new country wasn't perfect. Millions of enslaved Africans still lived in chains. Native Americans were being pushed off their lands. The ideals of freedom and equality were still a dream for many. Chapter 5. Expansion and Division. 1800s. In the 1800s, America began to expand westward, fueled by the belief in manifest destiny, the idea that it was the nation's destiny to control all land from the Atlantic to the Pacific. They bought land from France in the Louisiana Purchase 1803, explored the West with Lewis and Clark, and built new cities along the frontier. But as the nation grew, so did division. The North became industrial, while the South's economy relied on slavery. This difference tore the country apart from within. By 1861, it led to the Civil War, the bloodiest conflict in American history. Chapter 6. The Civil War, minus 1861 to 1865, brother. Fought against brother. The Union North wanted to preserve the nation. The Confederacy South fought to keep their independence and their slaves. Over 600,000 lives were lost. In the midst of chaos, one man stood firm. Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. In 1863, He issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring enslaved people in Confederate states free. 2 years later, the Union won. Slavery was abolished with the 13th Amendment, but Lincoln would not live to see the peace. He was assassinated in 1865. The nation mourned, but his vision lived on. Chapter 7. The Rebuilding and Rise, 1870s to 1900s. After the war, America entered a time of reconstruction and reinvention. The country rebuilt its cities, expanded railroads, and welcomed millions of immigrants seeking a better life. Steel, oil, and electricity powered the Industrial Revolution. Figures like Andrew Carnegie and John D. Rockefeller became giants of business. By the late 1800s, cities like New York and Chicago were booming. The Statue of Liberty stood as a symbol of hope for the world. The message was clear. If you can dream it, you can achieve it in America. Chapter 8. World Wars and Power, 1900 to 1945. T. Benchte. Century tested America's strength like never before. In 1917, the U.S. joined World War I, helping the Allies defeat Germany. After the war, the 1920s brought jazz, cars, movies, and prosperity. But then came the Great Depression of 1929. Millions lost jobs. Banks failed. Hunger spread. President Franklin D. Roosevelt launched the New Deal, rebuilding the economy and restoring hope. Then, in 1941, history changed again. Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, and America entered World War II. Soldiers fought across Europe and the Pacific. After 4 brutal years, victory came in 1945, but at a terrible cost. The world had witnessed the first use of atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. America emerged from the war not just as a victor, but as a global superpower. Chapter 9. The Cold War Era, 1945 to 1990, after World War II. The United States faced a new rival, the Soviet Union. It wasn't a war of weapons, but of ideologies. Democracy versus communism. This was the Cold War. From the space race to the Cuban Missile Crisis, tensions reached dangerous levels. In 1969, America made history when Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. Back home, the country was changing too. The Civil Rights Movement, led by heroes like Martin Luther King Jr., fought to end racial segregation and achieve equality. His dream of freedom and unity still echoes in the heart of America. Chapter 10. Modern America, 1990s to today, when the Cold War ended in 1991. The Soviet Union collapsed, and the U.S. stood as the world's sole superpower. The 1990s brought rapid technological change, the rise of the internet, global trade, and cultural influence. But the new century brought new challenges. On September 11, 2001, terrorist attacks shook the nation, changing America and the world forever. The wars in Afghanistan and Iraq followed. Yet through crisis and conflict, innovation never stopped. From Silicon Valley to Wall Street, from space exploration to social media, the U.S. continued to shape the future. Today, America remains a land of diversity, a place where every voice, every dream can make history. The history of the United States is not just a story of wars and presidents. It asks the story of people, immigrants, inventors, workers, and dreamers who built something extraordinary. A nation founded on the idea that freedom and equality belong to everyone, even if the journey is never perfect. From revolution to superpower, from hope to reality, this is the United States of America, and its story is still being written.